Welcome to Reboot with Reygan. I'm Reygan. Thanks for joining me. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Today's video is about hypnosis, the nervous system, and the power to respond differently. So let's get right into it. Have you ever noticed that you can tell yourself, calm down, don't overreact, everything is okay, I know better, and yet your body doesn't seem to get the message? Your heart starts racing, your thoughts speed up, your muscles tighten, you become hyper aware, you shut down, you become defensive, you want to run, you want to fight, you want to disappear. Or maybe you simply feel completely overwhelmed. And afterward, you think, why did I react like that? If you've ever experienced that, I want you to understand something. Your reaction isn't necessarily a reflection of what you consciously want. Sometimes your nervous system is responding automatically. And that's where the work we're going to talk about today becomes really interesting, because hypnosis isn't the only tool we can use. There are multiple ways we can begin learning to recognize, regulate, and change the patterns that keep us operating automatically. And today we're going to talk about how hypnosis can fit into that process. So in part one, your body can respond before your mind catches up. Think about a moment when someone said something to you and you immediately felt yourself change. Maybe your chest tightened, maybe your stomach dropped, maybe you became angry, maybe you felt rejected, maybe you wanted to leave. Maybe you suddenly felt small and you hadn't even had time to consciously decide how you wanted to respond. Your body reacted first. Then your thoughts came rushing in to explain what was happening. This is one reason I want you to become more familiar with your nervous system, because before we can change an automatic response, we have to become aware that it's happening. Part two, regulation starts with recognition. One of the simplest things you can begin doing is checking in with yourself. Not judging yourself, not trying to immediately fix yourself, just noticing. What am I feeling? What is happening in my body? What thoughts are running through my mind? What happened immediately before I felt this way? Am I moving toward fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? And this is why I believe nervous system regulation begins with awareness, because you can't intentionally change a response that you haven't learned to recognize. Sometimes the first step isn't make this feeling go away. It's, I notice what's happening. Part three, create an anchor. Once you recognize what's happening, you need something you can return to. That's why I use simple stabilization and grounding practices. You might have a morning anchor. You might have a 3-anchor day. You might have a calming plan for the first 90 seconds when you recognize that you're becoming activated. The goal isn't to force yourself to become perfectly calm. The goal is to create a moment of space, a pause between what happened and what I do next. That pause can be incredibly important, because when you're completely caught inside an automatic reaction, your choices can feel very limited. Regulation gives you the opportunity to create space for choice. Part four, understanding your response. Now we can go one level deeper, because I don't just want you to know I am anxious or I am angry or I shut down. I want you to become curious about the pattern. Ask yourself, what happened? What did I feel? What did I think? What did I believe was happening? What did I do next? And then ask, have I responded this way before? If the answer is yes, you may be looking at a pattern, and that pattern may have a history. Part five, the pattern under the pattern. This is where my hypnosis work comes into the conversation, because sometimes the behavior you're seeing today is only the surface. Underneath it may be an old belief, an old association, an old emotional response, an old survival strategy, an old conclusion you reached about yourself. Maybe you learned, I have to keep everyone happy. I can't trust people. I have to stay in control. I can't make mistakes. I have to protect myself. I have to be perfect. I am not enough. Or maybe your belief is completely different. The point is not for me to tell you what your pattern means. The point is for us to discover what your pattern means to you. Part six, this is where hypnosis can become a tool. Hypnosis can provide a focused state in which we intentionally direct attention toward your internal experience. Rather than simply saying, I know I have this problem, we can become curious about what is underneath it. What are you experiencing? What does your mind associate with it? What belief is connected to it? What do you want to change? And what would you like to experience instead? The process isn't about me taking control of you. It isn't about forcing you to reveal something. And it isn't about making you become somebody you're not. You're still you. You're participating in the process, and we're using focused attention and suggestion intentionally. Part 7, investigate. When I work with you, we begin by understanding where you are. What's happening? What are you experiencing? What triggers it? How does it affect your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, relationships, or choices? And then, when appropriate, we investigate the deeper pattern. This is where hypnosis may allow us to explore experiences and associations connected with the presenting issue. The purpose isn't to go digging through your past just for the sake of digging. The purpose is to understand what is relevant to the pattern you're experiencing today. Part 8, choose the right tool. And this is something I want you to understand about my process. I don't believe every person needs the exact same intervention. The presenting issue matters. Your history matters. What emerges during the session matters. And the therapeutic approach should reflect you. Depending on what you're working with, that could involve different processes. We may work with a younger version of you through approaches such as child in the room or upgrading the child. We may explore what it would mean to become the loving parent you needed. We may work with unresolved anger, boundaries, or experiences involving another person. And for certain presenting issues, other therapeutic approaches, such as command cell therapy or healing vortex, may be appropriate within the framework I'm trained to use. These aren't boxes that every client has to check. They're tools. The goal is to determine which tool is appropriate for the work you're doing. Part 9, interrupting the automatic response. Once we understand the pattern, we can begin creating separation between what you learn and who you are. Because maybe you learned to react a certain way when you were younger. Maybe it made sense at the time. Maybe it protected you. Maybe it helped you maintain connection. Maybe it helped you feel safe. But the question becomes, does this response still serve you today? You're not necessarily trying to destroy the old response. You're learning to recognize it, understand it, and determine whether you still need it. Part 10, from reaction to response. This is where nervous system regulation and subconscious work come together for me. The goal isn't to never become activated. You're human. You're going to experience stress. You're going to experience fear, anger, and sadness. The goal is to develop greater capacity to recognize what's happening and choose what comes next. Instead of being triggered and immediately moving to the automatic reaction, we begin creating a process where you go from the trigger to the awareness, to the regulation, to the choice, and then to the response. This is a very different experience, and it has very different outcomes in terms of the situation that you're dealing with at the time that caused you to be triggered to begin with. Part 11, installing the new direction. And once we know what you don't want to continue carrying, we need to establish what you actually want. Because I don't want you to simply leave with, I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to overreact. I don't want to people please. I don't want to feel insecure. I want to know, what do you need instead? How do you want to feel? How do you want to respond? How do you want to experience yourself? What would self-trust look like? What would confidence look like? What would safety feel like? What would healthy boundaries look like? What would happen if you could pause before automatically reacting? This becomes the installation phase. We're reinforcing the direction you want to move toward. Part 12, your daily regulation practice. And this is why the work doesn't have to stop when the hypnosis session ends. You can begin practicing regulation in ordinary moments. Your nervous system check-in, your calming plan, your morning intentions, your 3 anchor day, your minimum viable day when life feels overwhelming, your boundary tools, your awareness of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. These practices help you develop the ability to recognize something is happening inside me. Instead of immediately becoming something is wrong with me, that's a powerful distinction. Part 13, the reboot. This is what I mean when I talk about reboot. I'm not talking about becoming a completely different person. I'm talking about becoming more conscious of the systems operating within you, learning what activates you, learning how to respond, learning what you've been carrying, understanding the beliefs underneath the patterns, creating space between stimulus and response, and then intentionally practicing a different way of being. Sometimes the process may involve hypnosis. Sometimes it may involve grounding. Sometimes it may involve breath, awareness, journaling, boundaries, visualization, or other stabilization practices. The tool depends on the person and the need, but the destination is the same: to help you become more aware, more regulated, more intentional, and more capable of responding from the person you are today, rather than automatically reacting from an older pattern. In closing, where do you want to go from here? So I want you to ask yourself, what happens inside of me when I'm triggered? What does my body do? What does my mind do? What story do I immediately tell myself? What behavior follows? And then ask, is this response actually helping me today? Or is it an old response that I've simply become accustomed to? Because you don't have to judge yourself for having a pattern. You can become curious about it. You can learn from it. You can understand it, and you can begin developing new responses. That's what I want to explore with you here on Reboot with Reygan. The mental aspects, the subconscious patterns, the nervous system, the connection between what you consciously know and what you automatically do, and the tools that can help you to move from simply reacting to life to becoming more intentional about how you respond to it. I'm Reygan, and remember, awareness is where the process begins. Regulation creates space, and intentional change begins when you realize you have a choice in what comes next. Thank you for joining. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Namaste, namasko.